Hello everyone, welcome to the next session for PHP. In this session today, we are going to talk about a mini project that we are going to use as the basis of learning PHP and the various concepts of PHP and how to use it as a backend programming language. Now, I believe that you have reviewed the previous lectures on PHP, which were the basics on how the concepts are covered, which include concepts like reusing different types of code or including previous codes into your current code, or using variables, conditional statements, looping statements, functions, and arrays and associative arrays. These are the important concepts on which the future topics will be built upon. So let's go ahead and start with a mini project. It's a simple project that is built. The main idea behind it is to get you familiar with the concepts that are needed for understanding how PHP can be used as a backend programming language. The mini project is an e-commerce website where you will have a list of all the items that are shown for customers. The customers can view the items, can select the items. They can add the items to the cart or check out and make payments and send confirmation emails. We will not cover everything. We'll try to cover as much as possible. But the most important part is we'll cover the things that make this a dynamic website, which is having an admin panel where the admin can add more items, where the customers can review these items and add them to their cart. So the topics for today to introduce or set up the project for us to use it for the future sessions is we need to set up the buy from me into our local computer. As previously mentioned, to use PHP on your local computer, you need to have it. You need to configure it as a local server, so you can install applications such as MAMP, XAMPP, WAMP, or LAMP based on your operating system. Currently, I'm using a Mac, so I have a MAMP MAMP system installed. You can, if you're using a Windows system, you can have WAMP, or if you're using something which is you don't want it to be operating system specific, then you can use XAMPP, which is a good alternative. This is the one that we covered in the previous videos. The next topic that we are going to cover is implementing reusability concept into buy from me using the include function. We had mentioned there are two functions, which are include and require. So we are going to see which one, how to use the include function over here in a real example. And then we have usage of variables. We learned what variables are. We are going to use them, how we can use them in our code today. We'll use conditional logic as well, and we'll use arrays of setting up our system. Okay, so let's go step by step. So the first thing that we need to do whenever we want to work with PHP is we need to make sure that our server is installed and we start it so that we can run our code from that server. So for me, if let me go back, I'm using MAP operating system. So I installed MAMP, which is my server. And then what we need to do is need to make it start. The control panel looks different for everyone, but you just have these green lights. So you start the servers, it will set up the green lights saying that we started the Apache server, the MySQL, and the database server, and it takes you to the home page. Now this home page will tell you like, okay, you are here and this is your home page. And so now whenever you type localhost, it will show you the home page. I'm using a local MAMP. By default configures it with a port number, so you can see localhost :8888 over here, but you may not have it. If you're using XAMPP, by default it's configured to be just localhost. There is no port, which is fine as well. So it depends upon what your settings are. You can make it run on listen on a specific port, or you can let it be open. So for in my case, I have 888, which is by default configured in the MAMP system. But for you may not have it, so you don't need to worry about it. The next part that we need to consider is we need to create a project in our root folder, a folder in our root project. First of all, as I mentioned earlier in the videos, you need to make sure where your root directory is. That is based on where you have installed the system. So in my case, it is already by default installed in the applications folder. You can install it in the C drive or D drive or whatever folder you would consider it. So wherever it's installed, when you open the folder, you see there is a folder called htdocs. This folder is considered to be your root directory. Okay, so whatever you put inside, you can go and look it up from the browser as a server. So server will listen on port 80 or port 8888 in my case, and it will redirect whatever request is coming to this folder. So this is your root folder. So here currently I have just one folder called old because I put everything over here. I can create a new project. But instead of creating a new project, let's do one thing. So in this project, what we are going to do is we are going to download the Buy From Me project. So it is currently available on the website, on the course lectures website. If you could go over in today's session, you have the skeleton code. This skeleton code is the location where you have the page. Okay, so just go ahead and download the linked file. Okay, so once you have this link file, it's a zip file that you get. Just copy this zip file and paste it inside your Buy From Me, inside your htdocs folder, wherever that folder is. Okay, make sure that you put it inside this folder, otherwise it will not be accessible from the browser. And then you can unzip the folder. Okay, and once you unzip the folder, you can delete the zip file, and from this folder, you can see that you have inside the Buy From Me folder, you have certain files over here. Okay, by default, whenever you access the folder, the server will open the index file. Now, how do we test it if it is properly set up? So we just go to the browser, we open a new tab, and then we go for localhost. In my case, I told you I am using 888 as a port number. If you're not using a port number, you can just leave this empty. You can just start it like this. Okay, for me it will not run. And then you type in the name of the folder that you just created. So for me it was Buy From Me. And once you click it, you see the home page. This means that currently your web server is running, and not only that, your project is there, and you can view the project now. Okay, from that folder. So this is the index.php page that we can see. This is by default. Okay, so that means everything is set up. Now, the topics that we are going to cover today is, as I mentioned, I have like 3 tasks or 4 tasks, which is reusing arrays, conditional logic, and as well as arrays. Okay, so let's go ahead and start doing that. Reusing in PHP, as I mentioned earlier in the previous lectures, is that suppose that you have multiple files which you're using a bit of code that is already available in the other file, and you don't want to repeat that code because that code may change in the future. So let's take an example over here. We have 2 files. Let's say we have an index file and we have a contact.php page. Now in these 2 pages, you can see that the top part, the header part of the page, and the footer part of the page is the same. And this part of the page can change based on if you add new pages to your navigation bar, if you change the logo or the title of the page or something like that. So these are things that you can change. Okay, what we want to do over here is we want to make sure that this part of the page, the same part of the page, the part that doesn't change, the menu bar of the page, which doesn't change, we want to remove that, and we want to create a new page, 2 new pages. So one page will be called the header.php file and the footer.php file. The header.php file will include everything which is the common part in the header, in the top part of the page. And the footer part will include everything that is common in the footer part of the page. And then we just copy paste them over there. And now since we have removed them, we remove that in the original page as well. And in place of that, we use the include function to import that page inside this page. Okay, so now currently if I remove this part, the header page, and the footer part of the footer page, I will just include it over here in this page. Okay, and then you do that in the new pages as well. The contact page, now currently it will remove the header and the footer part, and it will start including it. So now we have common pages that is separated, so that whenever we make change to the common page, that changes are reflected into any page that imports that files. Okay, so let's do that in real time. So first of all, we'll open, as you have seen, we have set up the project, so that means it is there available on my website. It's running, and you can see the folder over here. Use your IDE to open the files. I'm using Visual Studio Code over here. You can use brackets, you can use any other IDE that you like. So I'm going to open the folder, and that folder would be the applications, the one that you set up just now in MAMP, htdocs, you have buy from me. Okay, so I'm going to open this folder. So inside this folder, I have the index.php file. This index.php file is the one that I am going to work with. So as you saw that in this file, I may have things which is like this part of the page, which includes the the menu bar and the logo, the top part of the page. And at the bottom of the page, we have the footer part of the page, which will also remain the same for all the pages. So what we need to do is we need to create two new files and we need to separate them. Okay, so let's do that. So let's say new file. And what I'm going to do in this new file is I'm going to select everything starting before the content div. Okay, so I'm going to select everything before this and I'm going to cut it. Okay, I don't want to copy it because I want to delete it from here, right? Because in this place I want to add the include statement. So I'll go to my new file and then I will paste everything over here, and then we'll go back and save the file as inside my folder, and I want to save this file as the header.php file. Okay, and I repeat that with the footer as well. So I again go back, I'll save file and I create a new file, and this time I'll go down and I will remove everything in the footer from the footer div to the bottom of the page, and then I go back to my new file that I created, and then I will save this as footer.php. Okay, so I have now header.php, footer.php, and index.php. Right? Now, if I run this code as is, it will not run because I have removed the header part. So the styles, CSS styles, and everything is in the header. So my page will not work properly. So it's missing the header and the footer right now. So what I have to do is I have to include them over here. So how do we include them? It's a PHP code. So I told you that whenever you are writing a PHP code, it should be enclosed inside these delimiters. Okay, and the function that we are going to use to import them is known as the include function. Okay, so we'll say header.php, and then we do the same thing at the bottom of the page, which is we go back and say php and say include, and which is footer.php. Okay, and then once we save this, we go back to our browser and we just refresh it, and you can see nothing changed because I did not do any changes. I just removed the header into a separate file, I removed the footer into a separate file, and then I started running the include statements, and that include statements would use the import the files into this file and start running them. Okay, let's make something like this. If suppose my header file is I use a header file which doesn't exist. Let's say header1.php. Now my name of the file is header, and the file that I imported is header1, which doesn't exist. So what will happen in this situation? So if I go back and refresh my page, the header part of the page is not there. So that means no CSS styles are available. So but the page is still shown. You can see the page without the header is still shown. Okay, but now there is another function which is called the require function. Now if I use the require function, the difference is when I refresh the page itself is not shown at all. So this is the difference between using the include statement and the include function and the required function. The include statement will show the file. If the missing file is not available, it will just ignore it and it will show the remaining part of the page, which may be okay in some cases. But in some cases, you need the file to be there, because without that file, the whole page doesn't make any sense. Like currently now, the header is very important because it includes the styles. Without that, the whole page looks very bad. So you have to decide which function you are going to use based on the functionality that you are going to provide. Okay. So in this case, let's say for example, for the header, I would use require for some case, and for the footer I would use include, because the footer will include some basic copyright information, and suppose by mistake I have deleted that file, it will not cause a big issue. Okay, so if I go back to my page right now, if I just go back to the page and refresh this now, you can see the page is currently shown because I'm using require and I'm using the correct proper one. if I change the footer to footer1.php and go back and refresh my page, you know what will happen? The footer is not there, but the page is still shown. But it works because I have the necessary items on the page, so I may not have a very big issue. So you have to decide which function you are going to use. Either it is require or include. That's the difference between using require and include. Okay? But now what is the advantage of doing this? Not only that you are separated them so that now you can change these things. The major advantage of doing this is whenever you create a new file, you don't have to repeat the header and the footer, which is common. You can just include them. Okay, so we'll see that in example. So if you go to the course page again, you will find that there is a contact.php page. Okay, so please download that file. Okay, and then since the file is downloaded, you go back to the downloads folder, you copy that file that you have, and then you paste that inside your buy from me folder. If the extension is downloaded as HTML, just remove the HTML extension. It will be a PHP, use PHP. And then once you have this file, you can open it over here in your IDE. Okay, your IDE will say this is the contact page, which is already there. Now you can see that in the contact page, you don't have the top part, which is the the content part of the page, which is this. It's starting from here, so it also doesn't have the ID, div ID content. So it's better to add that because yeah, I would probably add that. So let's add div. Is it okay? Okay, and let's go back to the bottom of the page and then close this div. Okay, so now what we want to do is at the top of the page. Now currently the page, if I open the the contact page in my browser, what will happen is it doesn't have the header and the footer. So it doesn't have styles, it doesn't have anything where I want the header and the footer to be there. So what I would do is we will have to go back to the top of the page and we have to do the same thing that we did for index, which is include or require the index. So I'm going to copy this over here, which is the require header.php, and I can go back to the bottom and I can copy the footer part, or I can just write it. Okay, so just go PHP include footer.php, and that would be my footer. And once I have done that, I have saved it. When I go back and refresh my page now, currently it has the header and the footer, so my page now is complete. Okay, so this is what I just explained to you. You can, whenever you separate them, you can use them as you like. Okay, but doing this, we'll have some issues, and we are going to solve these issues by the next tasks that we are going to do. Okay, so now for the second task that we have is using variables. Let's learn how to use variables in PHP, and while doing that, we solve a problem that we are currently going to see. Let's learn about the problem first. We have downloaded, the pre-task was to download the contact.php page and include the header and the footer, which we just did. The problem now is the title of the page is usually inside the head tag. So if you go back and look at the header.php page, you have something called the title tag over here in the head. Now this tag is saying buy from me. So it's the same. It remains the same because the index is also using the header PHP. The contact.php is also using header.php. So the top part, the title part of the page remains the same. But we don't want that because we want the user to know where they are. Either they are in the home page or in the contact page. Now usually that is done something like this. If they are in the home page, we do it something like this. Okay, we say home, buy from me. Okay, but if I do this home here, what will happen is if I go back to my page, if I go to the contact page, I'm still seeing, you see the title over here, it's saying home, buy from me. But even if I go to the index page, it will still show me home. So this is correct over here, but when I'm going to the contact page, it should not show me home.php. It should show me contact. So this should change based on the page you are on. Now this cannot be possible because currently we said that we separated the header to be common, but we can still do it by using variables. Now let's see how we can do that. Okay, so the problem now, as you understand, is We have separated the top part of the page into the header PHP, and we have the same header. So the task that we have right now is we have to open the index.php page, and we have to make sure that whenever it is from the index, it is showing home, and if it is from the contact, it is showing contact. Okay. So the beginning part of the page, this part of the page is something that we want to change. So if you want to change something, that should be a variable, right? Because it should be something that I can change. So what I will do is I will put this part inside my PHP command. Since I have to show something, I have to use echo. Now in this echo, I have to use a variable because this variable has to change. I cannot use a fixed text. I cannot say home again because this will be, the same as not using PHP at all, because we want to change this part. So in order to change this part has to be a variable. Variables in PHP always start with $, as we have studied in the basics, and I can call this title right now. The value of title is not set. The value of title currently is not set. So you will get a strange error if you open the page in your browser. You will get a strange error saying, it's empty over here, because I don't have anything. The value of this title, a variable, is not set. So now the question is, where do we set this title? If your answer is to set it over here inside the header page, it's wrong, because again we will have the same title again and again. We cannot change it. We have to change this title based on wherever you are coming from. So if it is coming from contact, then it should be contact. The value of the title should be contact. But if it is coming from index, the value of this should be related to home, which is related to index, which is home. Now how do we do that? So to think about this, we have to understand something very important over here. So let me go back to this figure and show you what happens. See, in this figure, what we did was we separated the header and the footer, and we included them as include header.php and include footer.php. Now the question is, what we want to do is we want to make sure how it's running. Is it running by calling it as a function? In PHP, what happens is whenever you are running this code is incomplete now because it is dependent on two files, which is the header.php file and the footer.php file. So it's incomplete. So what it does is it will go to the header.php, make sure all these contents are pasted over here. And then it will go to the footer.php and can ensure that all these contents are pasted over here. So at the end, when you are compiling this file is complete. Even though they are in separate files, you call them and include them in the one file before it is run and compiled. Okay? So let's imagine that we did not separate them. We had this page over here. And we had in the home, we had title. So I told you, okay, now initialize the title to be home. Where would you initialize it? Before using it, right? So it should be over here at the top. So what we do currently is in the index.php page, whenever we are calling, what we do is we go back to our top page and in over here, before we call the header, because we have to initialize it before we call it, so that whenever it is pasted over here, it will be complete. So here I will go and I will create the variable called title and I will set it to home. That's the simple logic behind it. So now whenever I created home over here, whenever I go inside this page, the home is already set, the title is already set to home, and I will see home. Okay, so let's go back to the header page, and inside the contact, I'm going to remove the hash so that we can navigate to the contact.php page from here inside. Okay, so now let's go back to our home page, and I refresh the page. Now I can see home here, right? But when I go to the contact page, I don't see contact because I did not set the variable for contact. So if I go back to my code again and go to the contact page, and again over here, let's go back and let's me create the title over here, and this time the title would be contact. So whenever I am coming from any page, I will use that particular title. Okay, so once I do this, I go back to my page and I refresh my page, you can see now it becomes contact, the title becomes contact, and if I go to my home page, the title becomes home. This is what I wanted. So this is how variables can be used. You can create a variable in the location that you need it to be, and you can pass the variable. You're not actually passing it, but because passing means you are actually sending it through the function. But in PHP, as I told you, it's not calling the function. It's actually taking that code and placing it inside your original file. So in that sense, you're actually creating something before the code is executed so that it is available to the code that is below it. Okay, so you're not passing it as an argument in a function. Okay, so this is how it works. I hope that's clear. So let's go to the next task. Okay, so the next task that we have is using conditional logic. Conditional logic is using if-else statements. So let's see how we can do it in real time example. Okay, so the task over here is, there is a class that is created already for you because the CSS is given to you. There is a class called on. So whenever we use the class on, there is an underline that is created at the bottom of the page, at the link. So let's see that. So if you go to the home page, you can see in the navigation bar at the top over here, we have two links: the stuff page and the contact page. So now whenever I go to the contact page, you see I do not see the underline over here. So if I go to the stuff, which is not there currently, it should be underlined, which we can do it. How is if you go to the header page and just put a class called on. So once I put the class called on over here, if I go back to my page and I refresh this page, the stuff page, you see the underline over here? But it doesn't change. It's always underlined, even if I'm going from home or from contact, because again, the same logic. The logic is, if I am using that page, if I'm putting something in the header page, in the header file, it will be reflected in every page that includes that file. So what do I have to do now to make it separate? So it should be on only when it is in that page. Okay, so how do we do that? So let me show you a basic example of it. So let's go back. This can be done by using the using the conditional logic. So what I will do is, now let's go to the contact page. Okay, so in the contact page I will make it on. Now currently this on is on every time, but I don't want it to be on every time. I want it to be on only when it is in the contact page. So we know that whenever it is in the contact page, the value of the title is contact, which we already set here. So what we can do over here is we can add some conditional logic over here to say, if the title is contact, then show on. Otherwise, don't show on. I mean, just don't show it. So how do we do that? It's pretty simple. So we are writing PHP code, right? So again, we have to do this. And we can echo on, but this echo on should be only shown whenever the title is contact. So how do we do that? Say if contact, if title, sorry, the name of the variable is title, right? If title is equals to contact, and then we echo on. Otherwise, it's not shown. There's no else. We don't need to else right now, because this is a conditional statement. We can use if. Otherwise, it will not be on. That's simple. Okay. So I save this now. Okay. So if we go back to our page right now and we again do a refresh, you can see the underline is available right now on contact. But if I go to the home page, you cannot see the underline, because it's using the conditional logic saying that if the title is contact. Okay. I can do the same thing over here. I just copy the part that we just did over here and then paste it inside the stuff and change this to stuff. We haven't done stuff right, the stuff page right now, but we will do it in a few minutes. Then we could stuff over here. So now whenever it will come from the stuff page, the stuff will be underlined, and we'll confirm that as we do it. But this is the basic idea. You can use conditional logic inside. The only thing that you have to remember is, whenever you're writing PHP code, just make sure that that code is written inside the PHP delimiters, because otherwise HTML will not recognize it as PHP code and will not execute it. Okay. Okay, so let's move on to the next task. So we have two tasks that we have finished, which is we have ensured that whenever we are going to a specific page, the title of the page changes, and we have ensured that whenever we are on that specific page, that the link in the navigation bar is underlined to show that this is the current page you are on. Tell people that you are on this page currently. Okay. This is what we did. So the final task for the setting up of the basic PHP project is using arrays. Okay. Now all of these things that I have just talked about are available as exercises over here. Okay. If you want to just go back, you can see that you set a project. You see this is the project for setting up the project, the list of instructions. Then how to set up the task, the navigation, the conditional logic, and everything is available as tasks. The last one that we have is using of arrays. Okay, so now to do arrays, we have to download the stuff.php page. So I'm going to go over here, and we have the stuff.php page, and I'm going to go and click on it, and it will download it, and I'm going to copy that page from my downloads folder and paste it over here. Again, I will remove the HTML extension to make it stuff.php, and once I go to my stuff.php page, I can do the same thing that I did before, which is setting up the header and the footer. Okay, so if you go back again, you can see that the header and the footer is not there. So I'll go back, and I will just okay, the div again is not there, so please add the div, which is id content. Okay, which is the one that we did not add over here, so I'm going to add it. And then I will go back to the first part, which is in the require PHP require header.php. Okay, if you remember that before sending it, I need to send the variable, set the variable title, otherwise it will be empty. So how do we do that? We just need to say $title as stuff. We set this as stuff, and that's it. Okay, the next thing that we need to do is we need to set up the footer, which is again PHP include footer, include footer.php. Okay, so once we did this, but now the page is available, right, available to us, and we can just simply go ahead and save this and go back to our testing area, say home page, or let's go, we have one more thing. So because in here we need to make sure that it doesn't say href to, it goes to stuff.php. When we click, it goes to stuff.php page. Okay, so we'll go back to our home, the page, and we will just refresh it, and we'll say if I am going to stuff page, it will underline the stuff page, and you can see the title over here, stuff. If I go to contact page, the underline is under the contact page, and the name is the page is contact. So this is what we wanted to do in the previous task. Okay, so the next step is using arrays. Now you can see that the page over here is empty. We have the products it added, some products added already. So what we want to do is we want to show these products over here as a list of items. To show them as list of items, we have to use an array of items. So we have to store them in arrays, and then we have to use them. So if you go back to the instructions on the page, you can see this over here. So I'm going to go to the arrays set by from me. Now we have to create an array, and that array over here should have, let's say, it's an associative multi-dimensional array. So associative arrays means that it has, you know, key and value pairs, as we discussed before. And over here, each of the key value pair, the key over here, the first dimension key is 101, and it has 3 items inside it. So it has name, image, and price. Similarly, it has another one, which is AR drone, is the name, and this is the image, and this is the price. So let's see how we can do that. So I'm going to go back to my page, which is the stuff page, and after the required statements, I'm going to create, let's say, create my product array. We are going to remove this later, but let's do it now over here. So how do we create the array? So first of all, we need to create an empty array stuff. Okay, so we have to create this as an array. Now once we do that, once we create the array, the next step that we have to do, this is an empty array right now, we have to add items to it. So how do we add items to it? Just say stuff, and then the first index, the one that we saw, was 101. And then inside this, it's going to be an associative array, right? So we are going to create a row of that array. And this will include the items that we had. We had name, and the name of that, the first item that we saw was Amazon Echo. Okay, and then we say comma, and then we create the next one, which is image, I think. Okay, and then we can copy paste this image. Okay, if using img, so I'm going to use img just to be consistent. And then the last one is the price, and it's 600. So it's a number, so I'm going to stick with the number. Okay, so what I did now is I created a stuff array, and inside the array I added the first item, which is 101. So I'm going to go ahead and add the second item. So just copy paste this, whatever you did over here, and this will become my 102, and we'll update it with these things. Okay, and then 2500, we'll go this, and we'll save this. Now we have created the array. We have created an associative multi-dimensional array that we covered earlier, which will have three keys, which is the first dimension is the ID of the items, which is 101 and 102, and the second dimension, which has three named items, which is name, image, and price. Okay, so once we are done with this, we need to use this array to show the items below over here. So let's go back to the instructions first. Okay, we have a list of other items as well, which is not here. We can copy it. If you go to the website, go to the course website over here. Let's go back, and we have a list.txt. So if you click on the list.txt file, it's downloaded, and I'm going to open that file. Okay, in that file you have the remaining ones, stuff 10. So we'll just copy this one, and we are going to paste it over here. So we'll have the list of all the items. So 10. So we have the same one. See, array. We have other things as well. The stuff is the same. We are using them as numbers. So I'll just to be consistent, I'm just going to use them as numbers as well to avoid any confusion. Okay. And then I'm going to save this. Now the next instruction that we have over here, let's go back to our instructions, is to display the list of items. To display them, we have, currently it's empty. The area that we want to display is empty. So what we want to do is we want to create, we have an unordered list already created. So in that list that we have, we don't have the unordered list, I think, which it's pretty empty right now. Okay, so we have to create an unordered list. So we have to create an unordered list with a class wrapper, which is under the h1 tag. So we have the div class wrapper, we have h1. So under this we want to create an unordered list, which is ul, right? So we create an unordered list. Okay, in this unordered list, what we want to do is we want to add list items. So we also want to set the class of this unordered list to products, because it's currently created, so that the items appear nicely organized. So we'll make this as products, and then inside this we want to have a list items. Okay, so we say li, and that li has a specific structure because it has an a tag with an href. We have image tag with the source and alt, and we have a p tag with saying view details if people click on that image, and then which is inside the clickable a tag. Okay, so we'll start the a tag with href. The href currently will be pointed to nothing actually, and then within that a tag, inside the a tag, we have image tag. The source of the image is currently not decided yet. We'll do that in a little while. And then we have a p tag, and we call that p tag as view details. Okay. Currently, I'll not see anything. I can so let's take one item at a time first. So let's say we will only focus on the first item over here. So we only want to show the first item. So how would we do that? So we can do that simply by going to the source tag, and here adding the PHP statement and say echo. We have the stuff array, so we'll say stuff, and we already have the number, which is 101, right? And then we close it. So let's save this, and this will become the name. If you want the alt tag, you want to use the alt tag, which is a good idea whenever you're using images. And this time, so here I don't want to use stuff 101 as stuff 101, right? Because stuff 101 will just give me the whole row. I want the specific location of the image. So how do we get the specific location of the image? We said dot, which is stuff, and then the second index is what? The second index is name. Sorry, image, right? I have to use image over here. And here, this index would be name. Let's save this. Let's go back to our home page and refresh the page. You see the first item over here. I don't know why the image is not appearing. I think there is some issue with my name. But I see the first item, and I see this item over here, which should be the image and view details. I think I messed up something over here. Echo stuff 101. Okay, there's some issue. I don't know what's the issue. Okay, I don't know. Okay, yes, I got the image. I should close the image tag. I think I mistakenly removed my previous tags for some reason. Okay, so yeah, now it should be okay. Yeah, so I removed the previous tags. I think when I was copy pasting it, I selected the alt tag, so it got deleted. So in any case, so you understand the concept is I just wanted to add the source over here, which is my 101 image, and the alt tag, which will have the image, the name over here. Okay, so let me save this, and then this you can see that when I do this, I see the first image. Now, how do I have 8 products totally right now. So I don't want to copy and paste this over here and change it to 2 and then again do it. But this is not the right way, right? We want to use dynamic programming. So we want to repeat this li many times so that it's automatically repeated. And when it is repeating, I want to change this 101 here to 102, 103 until I have 8 products. Maybe I will have hundreds of products. So this I cannot copy paste li, which is not a dynamic program. So how do I do this? I have to repeat this code. So whatever code that you want to repeat, this becomes your template. This is the thing that you want to repeat. So first, whenever we want to repeat something on a page, you identify what is the part of the code that you want to repeat, which will become your template. Okay, and what do you do is you have a looping statement before this, right? You have a looping statement here. So I'll add a PHP looping statement here at the top, and that would become my for loop over here. Now there is another one which is for each. Whenever we have associative arrays, we can use a loop called for each, as I explained in the earlier class. So what we can do is you can open the loop for each, and you have to stuff as $s or $item, whatever, it doesn't matter, it's up to you. You can choose whatever you like. So let's say stuff as. So this is the name of the array that you want to repeat, that you want to iterate over, and this is the item. So as it repeats, the s will contain the first row or the second row or the third row. So it will include the rows inside it. Okay, so there's no counter. It's because if you use a for loop, you will have I will be a counter, which will be 0, 1, 2, 3, which we don't want in associative arrays. In associative arrays, we don't have counters. Okay, and we want to close the for loop here at the end. Why? Because this is the template that we want to repeat. So you have to open the loop here, and we have to close the loop here at the end of the li. Okay, so once we do that, what we have to know that we cannot use this now. So the stuff cannot be used because we don't have one. So you remember that S will contain the first row. So we don't have to put 101 here because this whole thing is now S. This whole thing is now S. Okay, so S will be the first 101 or 102 or 103. So you don't have to use a counter. You don't have to use I. There is no I here. S will contain the whole row, as we have covered exhaustively in the previous lecture. So if you don't understand this concept, please go back and re-watch the arrays and associative arrays lecture so you understand what this concept means. So once we have done this, you can go back now. So I hope there is no mistake. I forgot to open the bracket here. Okay. Okay. So you have to open the bracket over here and you have to close the bracket over here. This is the contents of your for loop. Okay. And once we go back to our page and we just say refresh, you see all the items here. This is what we wanted. So what we did over here is we created an array of items, and you use that array of items to display the list of items inside our list. So we are not going to repeat our code. We are using our code as a template. So this code is dynamic now. It keeps on changing based on. So this array over here, if I add more items to it, it will automatically be reflected in the list over here. So this is the setup of our complete page. So currently, if you look at it, our page has index page, which has some items as our latest items. We are going to change this again later on, but for now, let's keep this as it is. And then we have a stuff page where you have a list of all the items, which is coming from an array. Later on, in the next lecture, we are going to see we don't want to use them coming from an array because array means changing the code, and we don't want to do that. We want to take these items from a database. So this is the next part of the lecture. And the third one is contact. So we have a list of a page where you can contact the administration by sending an email. Okay, so we have stuff, we have contact, and we have the home page. Okay, this is the basic setup. So if you have done this far, then you can start continuing with the next parts of the lecture, so you will understand everything that we will go through in this session for PHP. Okay, thank you very much, and looking forward to see you in the next lecture.